morning. Welcome to Viewpoint. Quiet on the set, please. Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. Well, we have a nice politician this morning. Not nice personality, I should say. I'm not sure about that first statement. Are there any nice ones out there?
I'd be willing to bet that she's in my camp. She wouldn't run for anything or from anything.
All right, we're going to introduce this nice guy. A very important part of our community, an integral part of our community, and has been for eons. Well, ever since I was a boy, and that's eons ago. Usually we start Viewpoint with a kudo. Try to keep it in the community, and I'm sure there are lots of people who are forgetting this morning. But again, having been down to welcome the honor flight home last night in Springfield, I just have to issue a kudo to all the folks who work so hard to keep these planes in the air 3 or 4 times a year, taking veterans out to Washington to see our wonderful memorials out there. Again, a very, very nice crowd. And incidentally, our governor's been kind enough to come and welcome these guys home, and they always appreciate that. That's a little extra touch. But a big crowd last night, and having taken that flight some 6 years ago now or something like that, at my age, I kind of forget what year it was. In any event, I made it a point, and along with my friend and high school classmates, Wayne Shealy and Orville Schaefer, we've kind of made it a point to go down each time we send a flight out and welcome them home. And it's an experience that we still enjoy after doing it all these several years, to see these fellows come home. Some of them in our class are a little tough getting around, but then we have the Vietnam boys that are much younger, and I'm certainly glad we were able to bring them into this program. So we've covered the Korean War and the Vietnam War and World War II. We don't have a Civil War vet, so we didn't bring them along.
Oh, you should invite them. They're nice people.
But it's a wonderful program, and sure is. How we keep raising the money, I don't know. It costs a lot of money to put these folks out there. Well, one of the ways we raise a lot of money is after I had taken my flight, I had the idea that we'd maybe put some
Jars.
Tupperware is what I want to say. Doggone it. Out, and I cut the.
Boy, that was a tough one.
Made a little sign and cut a little hole in the top of the lid for the Tupperware jars and put them around in several places in Lincoln. And in a matter of 2 years, we'd collected almost $2,500 in nickels, dimes, and quarters. And that was a minor effort, but there's some people making some major efforts to raise money out there. We'll have a golf outing in the middle of the summer here for that. Anyway, it's Honor Flight. It's a wonderful program begun by one man, and that's a marvelous story. Go ahead, Judith Kay. We have a really interesting guest this morning.
Yeah, well, she's a lovely girl, and I'm anxious to introduce her, but if she'll bear with me for one more second. Sure. Further in the same vein here, Bill will go right from here this morning to Northwest School to talk with a class of the kids there about WW2.
Oh, wonderful.
And he has done that over the years.
Wonderful.
That's a fun thing to do with these youngsters.
What grade are they, Bill?
Mrs. Williams.
5th.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rash.
Young people are so marvelous. They know all the answers.
They do, don't they? Good thing, huh?
I just love them.
That's why it's not that he does all it's his knowledge that we keep him aboard.
Well, there you go.
Exactly.
You need somebody like that, right?
Well, thank you for mentioning that, Judith. It's a nice experience to share stories with kids of that age, and they're very interested and they're always very polite. And by the way, a big kudo. This is Mrs. Williams last year. Margaret Williams. Boy, she's labored in the trenches for us. What? No, I don't want to tell her how many years. But anyway, she's entitled to retire and going to do that. Smart enough to do that. A great influence on our youngsters down through the years. So let's have a big kudo. See Marla out and about. Thank her for being such a great teacher.
And to all the teachers who labor in the trenches, and it would be a labor
so
in the trenches.
I don't know how they do it today, particularly with all the rules and regulations, the do's and the don'ts. Nobody likes to hear an old timer wax about how nice it was in the old days. But,
Go on.
but times were more simple.
Oh gosh, yes.
Times are much more simple.
Oh my.
And the teachers they got more respect. Just different times than that.
Well,
so Marla and her fellow teachers, male and female, are laboring away in the trenches, educational trenches, and doing a whale of a job swimming upstream.
Yeah, we're lucky to have them.
You betcha. But when we were young, and even Jim, things were black and white. This was the right thing to do. That was the wrong thing to do. You always do this. You never do that. Mm-hmm. And your parents and teachers and everybody in the known world was very adamant that you remember that, right?
Furthermore, we know which toilet we were going to use.
Oh, well, and there was that.
That's the dumbest thing you ever heard of. Well, let's just get going, Judy. Start to sputter a little bit.
You see, at our age, we digress.
That's okay. I'm good with that.
Not only that, we get off the subject.
That's all right. I'll just sit here and listen. It's all good.
Well, she's got a mother and probably a grandmother. She understands. Anyway, she's a lovely girl, and she is the youth services librarian at the Lincoln Public Library, and her name is Melissa Oxboro. And she, too, just like the teachers, has her role at the library annex where she designs and carries forth, sallies forth on her programs for the little people.
Yes.
And it sounds to me like you kind of just came into being a youth service librarian the way so many of us come into things. It just, we were there and it happened, and so we were. Oh, thank you. That you saved my bacon.
Yes, that's very true. I initially went to college for music performance and performed professionally for a little while and taught privately, so I had a chance to work with young people then. And when I decided that I wanted something a little more consistent in my life, I thought, what else am I passionate about? And immediately I thought about libraries and teaching and working with kids, and so I started out part-time in a small library, working the front desk, answering phones, checking out books and placing holds, and then I was the circulation manager, and then our children's librarian retired, and I had already started helping with story times when she couldn't, and before you know it, there I was and doing all sorts of programming and planning, and
Last week you couldn't spell it, and now you are one.
And there you go. I know. You just never know where life's going to take you. So.
Yeah, plans are what we make while we're waiting for life to happen.
Very true.
That's right.
You might remember, young lady, well, no, she would. There was a time in this country when we didn't have television.
I've heard of that.
She read it in her history book.
And maybe that was a pretty good thing, by the way. But the library, our library here in Lincoln, Logan County, is a cultural gem.
It has a rich history.
It's an architectural gem. Aesthetically, it
is beautiful.
And, you know, I've told this story myself several times on this very station, that as a kid, I always thought that the Carnegie Library, all Carnegie Libraries were exactly like we have. Well, not with the case, of course, but that was a young kid's observations.
We had the Adler Planetarium in Chicago came through Lincoln. They were doing what they call the Galaxy Ride last year, and they came through Lincoln, came to the library. They had all this neat stuff that they did with the kids, teaching them about space, and they loved. They went and they said, "This is the most beautiful library we've seen."
Good.
They just thought it was gorgeous.
Didn't that make you feel good?
Yes, and we had so many people come. They were so excited and just surprised that a town our size would have so many people participate. We were really
When you
lucky.
were a little girl, Melissa, did your mom take you to the library a lot?
Yes, she did, which was a feat because I'm the oldest of 7. So,
really?
She did take us to the library when we were younger, and I used to read like crazy when I was a kid.
My mother wound me up and pointed me to the library and said, "That's where you need to go.
You need to be there."
And I spent a lot of time as a young man in that library.
It's a great place.
Today, here we are here in 2016. It's still a major force in our community, and the children's part, which is across the alley now, and that's what you drop your hat under the excellent guidance of Richard Sumrall.
Yes.
We have a wonderful librarian.
He is wonderful. He works so well with all kinds of people and all sorts of circumstances. I knew when I first had my interview with him, I thought I could be here. I could work with him.
Oh,
and
easily, I'm sure.
He's wonderful. He's a great support. You know, I have ideas. I come to him. I say, "What do you think of this?" I think it's great. Let's do it. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
You know,
bless his heart.
Well, we spent a tremendous amount of money necessarily in the recent past redoing the steps, and I thought they did that in a magnificent way. Took those things out and marked them and put them all back exactly like they were.
Yeah.
That building needed a lot of help, and our community supports it very well. Tell us now about your sphere of operations and your specialty working with children.
I do work with children birth through the teens up through grade 12 and their families, and I'm in charge of putting together the programming along with my wonderful staff for all those age groups. I also am in charge of the collection development for that area of the library, so I choose all the books and videos and all the materials for that, and just kind of try to keep things running. So but I'm really lucky. I have a great staff. I have 3 part-time staff that work with me and help me to carry all that out. We do a lot of stuff, so I would be lost without them.
Oh gosh, yes, we'd all be lost without our staffs.
Yes.
I know, because I don't have one.
You're lost, huh?
I have you and you have me.
Well, there we go.
And we both have Jim.
Yeah. Well, how do you get your ideas? I should think. Of course, you could repeat an idea from a former employment.
Right.
But do you have, like, professional manuals that...
You know, what's really amazing nowadays with the internet, you can find anything.
Oh, sure.
I mean, there's all sorts of ideas out there for displays and program ideas, things that people have put together that you get on there and you print things off, and or you can tweak it so it will work better for your age group or for your community. I meet also regularly with other youth librarians in the area, and that's another good place where you sit and you talk about ideas and things that have worked and things that have not worked so well, and beware if you're going to try this, do this or don't do that. And librarians are really well known for sharing. They're great. If you think, oh, I want to do this, one of the things that's coming up this summer, we're doing our first video gaming event at the library.
Well, that's
terrified because I am not a gamer. This Minecraft craze that so many of the kids are into, we're going to try that out, and so I've asked librarians, okay, how have you pulled this off, and can you recommend how we might try this, and they're very good about sharing ideas.
What age is the hardest when you think of birth through the senior in high school? Who's the hardest to entertain?
Well, they're all so different. Lisa, who does our story times for our littles, our 6 months through 18 or up to age 2. The challenge there is often, keeping their attention, whereas, say, when I'm working with the teens, a lot of times it's just trying to get them through the door. They're so busy. They have so many things going on.
Yeah.
What is it they're looking for? What can we do that will bring them through the door and expose them more to the materials we have? And so I think for me personally, even though I love working with the teens, they can be the most challenging to find what will engage them.
Now, you've been in library science for a few years.
Yeah, it's probably been about 10 years. So.
In 10 years, has working with the teen, I would think that would be difficult, working with teens. They baffle me. Would you have noticed a change in what you presented 10 years ago as opposed to what you presented today to the teen group?
Sometime, probably more than what we present to them. Maybe what they're looking for and what's available in their reading materials has changed. That's one thing I've noticed a lot. Different issues that are introduced earlier and earlier, and even in fiction. So that's been interesting. As far as activities, though, I've found that, there's usually something that they're really into, so that might change over a 10-year period. But, teens like to have a good time. They like to be together. They do like to
fellowship.
Yes, if you can get their friends, say bring your friend, you're a lot more likely to get them in the door. They really crave that time together. But I've been really lucky with the teens I've worked with. They've been very respectful. They've been good about letting me try out new things. I told my group here, I said, you're kind of my guinea pigs. I'm sorry about that, but it is what it is. And so I asked them, I said, well, how did this go? Well, we liked this, but we didn't like this so much. You might try this, another time. And we don't have a real big group right now, but we do have a great group. So, yeah. But I don't know that it's changed so much, honestly.
Now, how about the little people? We each have
excuse me,
a little Liam, 2 and 3 years old, little great-grandkids.
Love those ages.
My Liam has the attention span of a gnat and the memory of an elephant.
Yes. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. And so what do you do about them to keep them on track? They kind of veer off.
One thing we kind of accept that's going to happen, and we try not to get too stressed out about it. Like I said, Lisa Kuhlman, she's been with us, was a year in January, I think. But she does our Little Listeners, which is our story time for our 6 months through 2 years, and that's a big developmental gap. She is very flexible. We keep our program very short, about 15 minutes, and she alternates. She'll usually do a very simple book, but they'll do songs, they'll do finger plays, they'll get up and play with the bubbles. Bubbles is every week. You have to have bubbles.
Yes.
Bubbles are a must.
Yes.
And she just lets the parents know, if your 18-month-old has to go wander, that's okay. Just let them go wander and bring her back.
I'm hearing an age. I'm hearing an age that kind of surprised me. You mentioned 6 months.
Yes.
Never occurred to me that people would bring a 6-month child into it.
That is fairly new in the library world, but we're realizing that, the earlier you expose children to books and language, the better for them later on. And so they have developed these, a lot of times they'll call them lap sit programs. We just call ours Little Listeners. And they sit on there, the parents interact, or the caregivers interact and help them do things. Some things they can't do, obviously they're 6 months, but just having that experience with other children, and being exposed at that young age, hearing repetition and rhymes and sounds and things like that can help them with early literacy. So
that's a new thing, though. I don't think when I was raising children I ever remember having heard the importance of not only reading to them, but just speaking to them all the time. You're interacting, whether you're feeding them or diapering them or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Just keep talking to them.
We definitely hear more about that in studies and things, but I think probably a lot of people have done that over the years intuitively. You just speak with the baby, you interact, you talk, but I think we are having more studies where there's being able to maybe quantify that and decide, okay, this is having this kind of an effect.
Well, we have some interactions that we have to do each Wednesday morning up here, and we have to interact with our kind sponsors. And so we're going to take a station break, and Mr. Ash is going to bring on our sponsors, and we'll be right back. And we're live in the studio here at WLCN 96.3. The program is Viewpoint. And, of course, Mrs. Busby is the co-host on this, and she has an old geezer sitting next to her. Our guest this morning is Melissa Oxboro, doing a great job, a very important job, serving the youth of our community at our great Lincoln Library. And, just up the line here to our right, we have this nice little, wonderful little library up here in Atlanta. And Kathy Hornan's cohorts over there in Emden, but in the Whistle Stop Library over there in again, serving that community in a great way. So the communities that have libraries are indeed very, very lucky.
Yes.
You know, I don't know of a youngster that coming in to look up for a book, do they know how to do the Dewey Decimal System?
Some of them do. We're still teaching that.
Are you?
It's important, yeah.
That's not Tom Dewey, by the way.
Yeah,
No.
some of them feel more comfortable with that than
Admiral
others,
Dewey
but
either.
yeah.
Well, that's,
we get
you know,
there.
that's the way we learned. We came in and we looked up something, or if we had a school assignment, you went to the local library and you had the subject matter and you started from there.
Yeah.
One difference is when you're in a town the size of Lincoln, Emden, Atlanta, you really do use the library. But
It's
I
a
dare
great
say, in
resource.
Minneapolis, I think I was at the library once. I couldn't even tell you where the thing is.
So often, at least it's been my experience.
Well, it's a major city as opposed
Well,
to
you got,
here.
it's a bus or streetcar trip, depending on
Yeah.
your age.
I think in small towns they can kind of be the heart of the
Yes.
community. It's a place where all sorts of people meet together, all different ages for all different reasons, and I saw that a lot at the library I worked at before, and I've seen it again here in Lincoln. That it's a special place for the community, and not just for the information and the resources, although those are fabulous. But it's a place for people to meet and mingle and catch up. You know, you see that all the time. Somebody running into someone at the circulation desk. Oh, how you doing? You know, have you read this? You know, where they just
Talking in the library.
community. Yeah, the community is
Not allowed.
connecting. And to me, that's one of the great things about the library is it's a place for people to be together.
Bill mentioned talking in the library being verboten, and we were talking before the program about the Lincoln Library. And when we moved here, my goodness, I wouldn't I was afraid, honestly, that if you like sneezed in there, the whole place would implode.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because the librarian made sure that you didn't do any talking. And then all of a sudden that changed.
Yes.
And it made it such a much more friendly place.
Yes, it's nice. One of the nice things I think about us having the two buildings is that the Carnegie Building, nonfiction, history, adults primarily over there, and it's a quieter setting. I mean, still friendly, but a quieter setting, so those that really need the quiet have that option. Our side, not so much. I mean, it is quiet sometimes, but that really has changed over the years, and that's one thing that I'm personally glad for. You still see parents come in and they're like, shh, 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 which you're grateful that they're trying to be respectful of other patrons, but, especially with the children, they're learning, they're excited, they come in, they see the fish, oh, wow, they see the fire truck with the board books, oh, wow, computers, coloring pages, books everywhere, and they just get so excited they can't hardly contain themselves, and you don't want to squash that, and
Well, if you put a damper on that, you could ruin it forever.
they might not come back.
Yeah.
So
Not under your jurisdiction, but an important part of the library, the service that they offer, is their microfiche. They can go back in getting
Right.
old editions of the Pantograph or the Courier, and then if you see something, they'll print it off for you. That's a really nice service.
Yes.
And I've seen people sit there and go through those things and twirl on it. And I've done it myself in looking for some research.
people doing genealogy work or, trying to learn more about local history, all sorts of resources. Yes, absolutely.
Just an endless amount of resources. Now, do you have that availability in the children's area over there?
No, we send folks over to the Carnegie for that. We have some public computers for use for the children, and some that are strictly for young children that have educational games strictly. But as far as like using the microfiche reader and that sort of thing, we send them across the street.
Good, bad, or indifferent, I guess I'll not worry about passing judgment on that. But I know, like my great-grandson, he knows how to work the little tablets and everything. And they're amazing. what they can comprehend.
Yes. I went to a conference just recently that talked, there was a class I took specifically talking about digital devices and educating patrons and families so that they can make wise choices with their children. And it is a different world. I mean, even in the last 10 years since I've been in libraries, yeah, they're all having experiences with those, and that's actually something that we're trying to look at the library to see, how can we best, help educate folks about these different things so they can use them in their lives. But yeah, from little tiny ones, you give them a phone and they're scrolling with their finger. They see a screen, they go up and touch it.
Exactly.
It's going to be a whole new world for those kids.
Now, when you went to your seminar, what did they say about children and all the iPads and telephones and all the things that they can use? Did they pass judgment at all?
They really were more about trying to find information. They did give us some good sources to go to, and they said that that's really important. As librarians, we search for good information, solid information, and then we pass that on to patrons and then allow patrons to make the best choices for them and their families. They did mention that some of the resources and some of the studies that are finally coming out about about how being plugged in at young ages can affect kids, but we're still kind of learning about that. And they mentioned, for example, it's going to go right out of my head. Big organization that had said that you shouldn't have any screen time if you're 2 years old or younger. But their definition of screen time, they were thinking more television. When you watch television, like when I was growing up, you sit there and you stare at the screen.
Yeah.
With a lot of the digital things, it's more interactive. They're doing things. They're making judgments. They're interacting, and so a lot of organizations are revisiting those definitions as more research is done. But we're still learning about that. That's something that's kind of on my list of things to learn more about, so that we can, better answer questions from our patrons about those issues.
I kind of get worried that we're going to be raising a couple generations of complete loners, recluses, who are nonverbal.
Right, because of all doing everything, you see everybody texting.
Well,
and things
the
like
teens
that.
can sit as close together as Bill and I are, and text one another.
Yeah, and there are definitely
get real.
Literally.
Yeah, there are definitely concerns, and I personally think a good argument for definitely having unplugged time, whether you're an adult or you're a teen or whatever. And it's been interesting to me because I thought for sure teens would be very much into, the e-readers, reading books that way. But I have found that even though the teens often are on those devices, they actually gravitate towards the physical books still. Which, for me, I have an e-reader and I use it especially when I travel, and it's really convenient and it's great. But I just love the heft of the book. I love the cover and even the smell sometimes, the feel of the pages, and just that experience. So
I've heard that time and time again
that way
about
still, I guess.
Reading on the iPad as opposed to having a physical book in your lap.
Yeah.
It loses.
Yeah.
There is a difference.
And different people, some people they get their Kindle and they never go back. Everybody's different. But that's what's so great. I mean, and that's one of the things about the library. We have them either way you want them. We've got ebooks collection that you can check out. Get on our website. We can help you download the app and you can check out ebooks, and we've still got the good old-fashioned kind as well. So
that's the beautiful thing about the library, I think, is you mentioned that you'll help us with the app. They're just there to help you with any question or thought you might have.
And to me, that's one of the great things I've loved about libraries from the beginning. I like helping people find answers to their questions. Because we all have them, right? We're all trying to navigate and find different information. And, there's a joke that we feel like we should know everything, the repository of knowledge. And that's not the case. But we do learn how to help find answers. And that I think is a great
Well, that's
thing.
the ticket, is to know where to look for things, not to have all the answers stashed.
Well, that's a part of learning.
Yeah.
That's part of the learning process. Melissa, I want to ask you, do you have professional societies of librarians where you meet from time to time and exchange ideas and so forth?
Yes, there's a lot of organizations. There anything from the Illinois Library Association to the American Library Association, young adult libraries. At the YALSA group is young adult libraries across the country. ALSC is for children's librarians. Even down to smaller areas, like I said, I get together with a group. They call it the Freeform Free-for-All, and we just get together, and that's exactly what it is. Very free-form. We share ideas and we give advice and share books and programming and things. So yeah, there are a lot of different organizations that you can be a part of and learn more, because
Well,
that's one thing as library, constantly learning.
Learn things from another librarian somewhere, so even just a little tip or something like that.
Yes, and there's a lot of what's nice, there's a lot of webinars now that I can get on online on my time, fit into my schedule, that I can learn about, whether or not we're going to try Minecraft in the library and how to do that, the best way to try it, or anything. I just did one recently about a company that's developed phonics readers for teens that help those that are learning English as a second language, or those that have developmental delays and concerns like that, but they have teen content, and yet they're phonics. They're learning to read. So there's just so many. In fact, sometimes that's the trick, is to determine, okay, what are we going to focus on? What does our community need? Where do we need to spend our time and our
I'm so glad to hear you use the word phonics, because the educational community has taught it, and then they take a break while they don't teach it for a couple of years. Then they decide, well, I guess we will teach it. And my brother and I are 2 years apart, and they were teaching phonics when I was young. And then when John came along, they decided they'd be more innovative. John can't spell his name.
Oh.
And I've got a friend who has the same problem. Phonics is important. Thank God they're seeing the wisdom of teaching it again.
Yeah, I was very excited that they were making those things available to teens, because we have had people coming in where they've adopted a child from another country, and that child might be a teenager or older, and you don't necessarily want to sit them down with Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss is great. We love Dr. Seuss, but especially for teens, that can be really difficult. They're trying to fit in anyway. So I was very impressed with that concept, and again, just so many resources out there that are trying to learn about and see how best to implement.
Well, give us a rundown of some of the things that you're going to present for kids this summer, because school's going to be out before
I'm so glad you asked.
Just segged right into that.
Yes, that was fabulous. We're really excited about the summer reading program. I was just, when I came here and heard about the level of participation in the community with the summer reading program, I was blown away. It's marvelous, really. A little intimidating it was, too, initially. But last year we had, I think it was 453 children and teens register for the summer reading program.
Really?
So we anticipate similar numbers, always hoping, of course, that we'll get more as we reach out. We have things planned for all ages. One of the things that has been important to me as I've come in, everybody, all librarians see things differently, and one of the things that has been important to me is to try to just be very flexible. We have so many different types of patrons, different size families, different family circumstances, different types of readers, and just trying to maybe make things as easy as possible on parents and caregivers, and still have a legitimate, a good experience for the kids, whether they really struggle with reading or they love it and are just voracious readers. So what we've done is we've tweaked the program a little, where we help the children and the parents set individual reading goals based on that child. It can be number of pages, number of books, or time. whatever works, and then we break it down into 6 parts, 6 little milestones, and every time they reach a milestone, then they get an incentive prize. And one of the reasons we decided to go with that is that way a child that's really a struggling reader can earn the same prizes as one that's a great reader, because the goal is personalized for them. And so we're really excited about that. So we're going to do that again this year. And then, of course, we have tons of programs for all the different ages. We have our story times for our 6 months to 2 years with Miss Lisa. She does a great job with that. I get to work with the 3- and 4-year-olds. And then I have a kindergarten through 2nd grade story time group. And we, of course, do books, and sometimes we'll do a little science. We're going to be drawing with our feet this summer. I mean,
Oh, gracious.
art and just music and lots of fun stuff. We also have a program we're really excited about, which is our Explorer Club, which is for our 3rd through 5th graders. And Lisa Coleman does that for us as well. And they do all sorts of things, focusing on science, technology, engineering, art, math. One of the things they're doing this summer is they're going to design their own container to hold an egg, and then they'll try out their engineering skills, and then we're going to drop it from a couple of stories up and see how they did with their engineering. So some fun things there to kind of get them building and thinking and analyzing and learning, but always with a lot of fun as well. So that's our 3rd through 5th graders. And then our young adults, or our teens, are 6th through 12th graders. And we've tweaked their program a little bit this year too, so theirs is actually very similar to the younger children in that they can earn regular prizes, which was not necessarily the case before. It was based on how many books they read, and now they'll also be able to do individual goals.
And you'll do it again by increments.
Yes.
So many pages or so many books.
If somebody says, I can read 240 pages in this amount of time, then they'd get 6. Every time they did 60, they would get a little something.
Now, is there a way of measuring whether or not they have picked up on what they've read? Let's say 240 pages.
Not really. It's more of just we're trying to encourage them to keep doing it over the summer, and we kind of leave it up to them as the teens or parents and interacting to make sure that they're really having a good reading experience, and then we are just there kind of as support and encouragement. And we've just learned that usually works best, especially during the summer. If we have too many details, it can kind of throw people off, and so we try to keep it as simple as we can. But it's been a great thing because it helps the kids retain what they've learned through the year, and also hopefully reminds them that it's great fun to read. And even with the teens, we're excited this summer too. We've got a couple activities with them. We're doing, like I said, the video gaming event, which will be a new experience. And
you'll learn together.
Yeah, and they're real good about that. And then we're also doing a chocolate Olympics with them. Our theme is Read for the Win this year. So we're going to have Pictionary with pudding, and they're going to push Whoppers across the floor with their nose, and of course with all the activities we pull books to introduce them to things like, oh, you thought that was cool that we learned about how to, do whatever, a certain art technique or whatever,
or
yes, exactly. We've got a book on that.
Yeah.
Do you want to check it out? So yes, and then we always have professional performers in on Thursday mornings. So we have 6 of those during the program. We have some that are returning that we've had before, and some new ones. Some of those, one of my favorites from last year was the Hanson family unicyclists and jugglers. Unicycles right in the library. They do an inspirational thing.
How do you find out about these sources to bring these folks in?
It's great. Part of it is that group I told you about, librarians that kind of share things. There's actually a showcase that the librarians put together in conjunction with one of the booksellers in the area. At least they have in the past, and they have these performers there that they've kind of vetted, and they do little bits and pieces. That's actually how I've found some of our new performers the last couple of years, like the Hanson family. I saw them at a showcase and was like, "Oh, you're wonderful! We need to have you."
Oh, I bet the kids got a bang out of
Oh,
that.
they loved it, and it's fun because it's a mom and dad, and I think they had 3 or 4 of their children. So it's a whole family. They all have their different skills, and they were just wonderful. They worked with the kids before, talked to them afterwards. They had these different tricks they showed them. They had little stations where they could try stuff. I had this little 3-year-old, probably 4-year-old, run up to me and says, "Miss Melissa, I can juggle," because they had, played with them and taught them to juggle, and she was just elated.
These folks charge you a fee to come to do that?
They do. They do, and we do budget that.
That comes out of your budget then,
yes.
so that you have to kind of set some money aside.
Yes, and we're really lucky because most of those performers, if you can schedule libraries together, and we have a couple of libraries that they have their programs the same day we do, and so a lot of times we're able to work with them and bring people and then lower the cost, which is wonderful.
So we've come a long way since the Ida Webster days, Judith.
Oh, my, yes. And isn't it a wonderful thing?
She was a librarian when I was a child.
I know. I've heard of Miss Webster. I have indeed.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, and good luck, and have a beautiful summer.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I bet you have some kind of flyer people could pick up at the library.
I do.
With dates and times.
They'll
and
definitely want to do that because I'm sure I missed something, like our Friday workshop. Registration starts right after Memorial Day, but we do have all of our calendars and information at the library right now. You can also find it on our website.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate you giving us your time this morning. We always try to close Viewpoint with a subject as quote that's hopefully analogous to the subject matter of the morning. And I found one, Groucho Marx. Now, he was a great entertainer, kind of a cynical humorist, and he made this comment about, I must say, I find television very educational. The minute someone turns it on, I go to the library and read a good book.
I like that one. I haven't heard that one.
How appropriate that is.
Perfect.
Thank you, Miss Oxboro.
Thank you
very,
for
very
having
much.
me.
Thank you.